we all know those people who, well, we call them show-offs, right? Like, look at me, look at me. But they're the ones who are doing just that. They're looking outside themselves. They're so used to looking at others for everything. Ideas, approval, acceptance, everything, right? And so then they see what they're doing and then they're like, oh, okay. And then it's like pretend to have it or act like they have it or act like they know, all these things. It's all acting. And, but they're cheating themselves because they're not choosing. They're not deciding on their own. They're basically deeming somebody else as better than them. They're deeming somebody else as more special than them. So right off the bat, they're dishonoring their higher selves, the God within, their inner child, whatever you want to say. They're dishonoring themselves. They're abandoning themselves because they're saying, we don't know, we can't decide, we can't whatever. And so they seek outwardly. And we've all done this, so don't, just try to hear me here. And so basically they're cheating themselves out of choosing, out of deciding for themselves. So they have no idea. And if they're forever chasing outside themselves, they're never getting to know themselves. They have no idea what they do and don't like. They have no idea what they would choose because they haven't lived in the present moment, in the here and the now, to indulge, to experience, to decide, to choose on their own. They're always being steered or dictated or led by others. And yet these are also the very people that claim that they know, they're leading, they're really loud, obnoxious know-it-alls, right? Like they know everything. You can't tell them anything. And, okay, how can I get all this out? Sometimes you'll be around these people, but you don't always recognize it. They're not always, they're not always loud and like in front of me, right? Like say they're in front of me and they're not loud with me, but because they're observing me, only to then turn around and be loud with others and like claim this and that based on what I said. Like they would be like holding me on a pedestal and then deeming everything I had said or done or whatever was the way, right? Or some nonsense. And then going and acting and claiming like they knew or understood anything I said, only to look like a buffoon to everybody else, only to look like the person that is clearly obnoxious or arrogant or whatever, because it's not said with confidence, because they're not confident, because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're just regurgitating what they heard other people say that they want to be like. And so it comes across that way. People get it. They can hear it. They see the arrogance. They see the buffoon, even though it's the same word. So we've talked about this as like where you're vibrating or how, this kind of thing. Okay. So this is why it's important for all of us to be, well, I was going to say careful with our words, but the truth is, if you are loving you and staying in alignment with you, you don't have to necessarily be careful with your words to please others or worry about others. In other words, everybody needs to be in charge of themselves. And if you're choosing to copy another and be a buffoon or be a copycat or be a regurgitator or have them lead you, essentially, is what you're saying. You can't do it on your own, or you're not good enough. Like then that's on them. Like until they're able to get out of that stage. But what they had shown was, as we grow, as we mature, as we experience, as we choose, as we decide, those who are independent thinkers, who are capable of thinking on their own, at least some of the time, we do tend to say things. And again, we don't necessarily recognize that others are hanging on our every word, right? Or hanging on every thread, or, looking to see what to do next, where to go, this kind of thing. And it's not our responsibility, although society and everybody will tell you it is. They will tell you, these people who have really big influences, but really even parents, even whatever. And this is all true to a degree, right? But if you're coming from your highest and best, then no, you don't need to be people pleasing, right? You need to be in alignment with yourself, not with others around you. And, okay, so yet, they were showing this where, so again, let's just use me as the example because that's what they were using, just so I can speak it and get it out. And, as we grow, as we mature, as we decide, as we experience, think of it as like stepping stones or levels. So you might have been at level 0 and you aimed to get to level 1. You got to level 1, you decided on level 1, and whatever you decided on level 1 determined where you went, whether it was 1A or 1B, and so on and so forth. And, you get to level 1B, 1M, whatever, and you're like, like at one point you were saying, I can't wait to get to 1M. I'm so excited. I love this. And then you get to 1M and you're like, I'm so glad I'm past 1M. I'm glad I'm at 1Z. And somebody who hasn't even gotten to level 1 is like, I'm not even going to level 1M, right? Like they'll skip over it, or they won't decide on their own, or they won't even zigzag through, but they'll start regurgitating that rhetoric, like, who's going to bother with 1M? Don't even go to 1M. Don't even bother. 1Z is where it's at. That's where it's at. This kind of thing. And so they're constantly cheating themselves out of choosing and deciding and experiencing on their own, because they're seeking outside themselves, looking towards what others are deeming and determining and telling them what is right or wrong, good or bad, this or that. And, one time something was really important to you and you couldn't wait to experience that or indulge in that or get, the best of that. And really like, meaning, you decide, I always like, food is so simple, right? Like, you always ate at home and then you're excited to go out. Well, then you have fast food restaurants and you're like, oh, wow, it's great. Then you're like, oh, I'm going to go to chain restaurants. You like go do a step up. And then you go to independent restaurants. Then you go to Michelin star restaurants. Like you keep upping the ante, where at one point you were happy with fast food, right? And then you were really happy with the chain restaurants. Like you kept upping the ante because you decided you really liked food. But the more you focused on the food, you recognized it was more important the quality, and then it was more important the ingredients, and then it was more important the accolades. Like everybody says this is the best, let's find out why, right? But you're deciding all alone because you're present. So all alone too, meaning you're staying aligned with you and you're choosing for yourself. Yet somebody else who only knew you when you were excited to go for the fast food level is so excited for the fast food level. But then all of a sudden they hear you talking about Michelin star and they're like, well, I don't even know what the fuck that is. They have to like look it up, and they skip right over the chain restaurants, and they skip right over the independent restaurants, and they skip right over. And so they have no idea what any of those are. So they can't even appreciate or even decide regarding the Michelin. They don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. You can't go from never, in having anybody else cook for you and then going to fast food. You're going to think you're stepping down, and then jump to Michelin star and know anything, right? And this is what people are constantly doing, though, when they're seeking outside themselves, because they're comparing, they're competing, they're racing, they're envious, they're jealous. They want to take all these things are our own downfall. It's our own stumbling blocks, right? Like you hear all the time. I mean, people are like, I've said it a million times and you've heard it a million times. I know it. Don't compete outside yourself. There's no point. You're only in competition with yourself. And this is exactly why. That's like such a good, like I feel like people can hear that. That is why. Because when you're competing outside yourself, because you think you're, first of all, lying to yourself right off the bat when you're telling yourself that somebody outside of you is so much better than you, that you are much lesser. So you're already hurting yourself. You're already stabbing yourself in the gut right from the jump. And then you're furthering your own delay, your own stagnation from actually maturing, evolving, and growing by continuing to look outside yourself and compete with anybody outside yourself. Because then that's what you're doing. You saw them looking at the one thing. They only stay aligned with themselves. So they continued down their path clean and clear because they weren't getting distracted and looking to get on somebody else's lane per se, or compete with somebody else, or hear what anybody else was determining about something. And so they were able to keep marching all the way through. And you try to leap right to where they're at, and you can say the exact same thing. You could have the same verbiage conclusion that they had regarding Z's experience, but you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So you have no validity. You have no weight behind that. It's all arrogance. It's not confidence, because you don't know, and you don't even know why you do or don't like it. You don't even know why you're deciding what you're deciding, other than to admit, oh, I just followed so-and-so, right? But you also use it as a scapegoat when you fall and stumble. Well, I was following so-and-so. So you're forever announcing that you're not capable of choosing, deciding, or leading yourself. You must always be led on a leash. So there's that. But back to so it's but the person who was in their own lane and jumped right to Z and was making their decisions, they were kind of showing it's somewhat careful what you say, because using the same analogy, now you're totally done with that. You've decided you're no longer interested in even, let's say being a foodie, no longer a foodie, right? You don't even want to be bothered with that. Now you've started to dive into something else of interest. Something else has really caught your interest, and you're knee deep in it. And the person who hasn't seen or heard or know, or they're not caught up to speed, and they're still stuck on sounding like a moron talking about Michelin star when they have no idea. They're only used to McDonald's. And they find out you're knee deep in something else, and you're saying, God, I'm so glad I'm not a foodie anymore, focused on food or this or that. And they're like, oh shit, I got to change my whole rhetoric. We're no longer focused on food, right? And then they scramble over to what you're doing. And it's all the while they're missing out on everything. Meaning they're missing out on them. They're missing out on their life. They're missing out on all the goods. The goods are living in the here and now. The goods are deciding for yourself. The goods are determining who the fuck you are, what you like, getting back to you, remembering who you are. But you're missing it. You're missing it when we're looking outside ourselves for that get, right? And some people have a lot of them. To get love, acceptance, approval. So those are always my but everything. People are doing it, for importance, for company, for connection, for all these things. It doesn't always have to be negative, but when one can feel full and satisfied and aware and present and at peace within one's own body and mind, you become aligned with yourself and the universe, and you have that infinite flow. You have that abundance. You have it literally pouring out of you. So then you get to choose if you want to share it for others. And so when you're listening and being present with others, you're no longer doing it to get anything. You're doing it because you want to and you enjoy it, and you are able to choose and decide if you want to offer to give that to them. You can give them something, meaning they're looking for your approval. Well, if you're staying present and you see that's their need, and you have an abundance, and you're happy to give them that little pat on the head, you can do so or not. But you're also hopefully at a stage, if you're truly filling up from the inside out, maybe even giving them some wisdom with that, right? I used to do that with my daughter when she would show me things where it was it wasn't that I wouldn't give her approval, but it was wow, I think this is really spectacular. What do you think? Right? If she would show me some of her artwork, meaning it's irrelevant what I think. If I said it's garbage, shouldn't fucking matter to her, because she'll be like, this is fucking awesome. I love this. That's a shame you don't. I don't care if you do or you don't. I love it. And if I said I love it, she can say good, don't love it, don't care, right? Because we want to get to the point where that's nice to have the approval. Of course we want approval. Of course we want like connection, and we want love, and we want the ease, and we want the flow. But the second you're seeking it to determine whether you like it or not, this is a problem. And this is what we often raise, and we don't even realize it. So it's like a good example for kids. Like oftentimes parents are doing one or the other extreme, where they're telling them they're spectacular for everything, but never, it ends up not landing after a while. So you can say they're spectacular all the time, but then they seek for that approval all the time, but then they expect it as well. So it can lead to a whole set of its own rabbit hole mess. And then there's others who will never give their kids any validation, any approval, anything. And they think that's the best way to be, because then it'll teach them not to want it from them. But that also isn't true, because that extreme ends up leading to them seeking it everywhere else, right? So there's, like everything in life, you got to figure it out, and you got to figure out the balance to be able to hear anything I'm saying. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And when we're constantly looking for that blueprint, that book outside of us, that teacher, that guru, that whatever, if they're not teaching you how to get back to yourself, to be able to hear, to open up your eyes and ears and all these things, and to really tune into you and decide and start seeing why you're thinking what you're thinking, why you're deciding what you're doing. Oh my God, I'm doing it to get, oh my God, I'm doing it to oh my God. If you don't start asking yourself those right questions and really turning your ship around so you're starting to go within versus without, then you're just running amok, right? And you'll forever keep leaping outside yourself, essentially never getting home, never getting to peace and alignment and ease and flow within you and the universe. Okay. I still don't know if I got everything, because when I started the conversation, they were showing that seeker, yeah, and I know, but we went off on so many other tangents. Did I get out what you wanted me to about the? Oh, yeah, basically, I just went into detail. They wanted me to get out the fact that so many people don't realize they're not choosing or deciding for themselves, and by seeking outside themselves, they're missing out on their entire life, because they've never lived in the experience to truly decide. They've only lived the experience to see how everybody else is going to react. So it's like not even being in your body. So it's like, even if you sat down and ate with everybody, you ate it too. What do you think? And they don't know. They're waiting for everybody else to tell them what they think, so then they can determine what they think based on what all those other people said. What do you mean? It was in your mouth. It's in your belly. How do you feel? How did it taste? What was it like? What was your experience? Nobody really cares. You're getting to share and decide for yourself, and you can express it or not. But when you're looking to say it just for, again, further outside clarity of validation, whatever, you're missing out on all of your life. I feel like that's a really good example to hear what people mean by all these things. So you can really start to hear it. And it's no longer just that background noise or, yeah, nice thing to say. Even you regurgitate it. This was a big thing lately. I think I put out a post of this. I was listening to somebody who I thought was an independent thinker. I thought was X, Y, and Z. And I've come to find out, I think this person's a robot. I think they are a true regurgitator who has so many of the same blanket statements, like the regurgitation fill and answer, because I've heard him say it so many times now that I'm like, oh, you're a robot. You think you know, and you do to a degree, but you're at maybe degree A, and I thought you were at degree M or N, but you are not. You have just mastered stating that response in all said scenarios. So you're not integrating, you're remembering, you're memorizing and regurgitating. You're knowing the right response, when to say what, when, where, but you don't really understand it, nor know how to apply it, or know how to discuss it in depth. You're just regurgitating. It's amazing when you see this, because you don't realize how many robots are around you. You thought they were a real boy. They are not. They are not. It's shocking. It's shocking. If you start to think on your own, if you're able to cut those cords and think on your own, not 100% of the time, but some of the time, you'll start to be able to see more clearly. And the clearer you can see, well, it can get wonky, but then it gets really funny. And then it gets surprising and amazing and all types of things. And you're like, Jiminy Crickets, I really am in a game. And it's like, can you see the real from the fake? Can you see the real from the fake? And you can make it a game, because it is, and it can be more enjoyable that way too. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.